Hi, I'm Ryan Graham. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. For the second time this year in Dryden, there's been a tragic double drowning. The first incident in July came with the lives of a 15-year-old boy and his 12-year-old sister. This latest tragedy occurred last weekend on Wabigoon Lake, and one of the victims was a 5-year-old boy. Dryden OPP were called in last Saturday afternoon after the child and a 28-year-old man entered the water and failed to surface. The body of the boy was recovered from the water at Dryden's Flat Rock Park the next morning, and the adult victim was recovered that evening. The investigation continues. Dryden Mayor Jack Harrison has issued a statement saying with 4 drownings in one summer, this has been a heartbreaking time for his community. He adds that these tragedies serve as a painful reminder that the water safety must always be taken seriously. OPP were investigating a serious highway collision west of Dryden on Wednesday morning, and police later confirmed there was 1 fatality as a result of the crash. It happened on Highway 17 in Ox Drift, near the corner of Latimer Road. The collision involved a pickup truck and a transport. Dryden OPP say the driver of the pickup, a 27-year-old man from Sioux Lookout, was pronounced dead at the scene. A passenger in the transport suffered minor injuries. Police shut down that section of Highway 17 in both directions for most of the day, but it was reopened to traffic just after 5 o'clock that afternoon. September 26 was a tragic day on Northwestern roadways, as details have been released about a pair of fatal collisions. Sioux Lookout OPP were called to a single vehicle crash at 8 o'clock that Friday morning on Vermilion River Road. The lone occupant, a 22-year-old man from Emo, was pronounced dead at the scene. Then that evening, Greenstone OPP responded to a crash involving an SUV and a transport on Highway 11. The driver of the SUV, a 28-year-old woman from Long Lac, died at the scene. Anyone with information or dashcam footage from either collision is asked to contact OPP. Well, police postal workers in this region and across the country went on strike last Friday, right after the federal government announced some major changes it wants to bring to Canada Post. Justin Hardy spoke with the local union president, who represents around 260 posties across the Northwest, and he files this report.
The strike order came Thursday evening following a federal announcement of changes that would allow Canada Post to end door-to-door delivery and close or convert some post offices. Cup W Local 620 President Leo Favreau says those changes are unacceptable.
They want to cut services all across the board. So it's no longer about us anymore. It's now about Canadians. They want to eliminate door-to-door. They want 1 or 2 days a week postal delivery, and a whole slew of things that are going to hurt the general public.
With the suddenness of the strike, most workers had little to no warning, but they still managed to organize on the picket line outside the local Canada Post headquarters on Alloy Drive. Favreau says he's proud of how quickly they organized to fight these changes.
It's going to be a disaster for us. It's going to be a disaster for Canada. And I'm happy with the fact that my people showed up this morning and we're ready to go. They're not going to be pushed around, and we're going to have to stand up tall this time.
Favreau adds that he wants everyone to know that the fight has grown beyond the rights of workers, and they hope to see support.
It's not about us, about money, about everything that I've heard that we've done, apparently. We're now fighting for them and for their services and their rights. And there's ways around doing this. It doesn't have to always be cuts. So I'm hoping that the public will join us and raise a fuss and help us save their services.
Justin Hardy, TBT News.
The provincial government is trying to bolster the forestry industry in the face of U.S. duties and tariffs with a new $30 million investment package. Natural Resources Minister Mike Harris was in Thunder Bay last Friday to announce $20 million for forestry access roads and $10 million for Ontario sawmills, while they find new markets for their goods. The money for the Forest Access Roads program brings the total commitment to $79 million. Forestry roads on Crown land aren't just used by logging companies, but also by mining companies, area residents, and others. Harris says it's important for Ontario to continue to support the sector and urges the federal government to follow suit.
We have made record investments through programs such as the Forest Sector Innovation and Investment Program and the Forest Biomass Program. But we know that more is needed. And that's why I'm here today, alongside my friend, Associate Minister Holland.
Our government is doing its part, but we know lasting results require partnerships at every level of government. We have already called on the Government of Canada to bring resources to bear in support of Ontario's forest sector. We welcomed the announcement of $1 billion in support for Canadian forestry last month. Now we are renewing our call for the federal government to act swiftly and translate that announcement into real action.
Both NOMA and the Ontario Forest Industries Association have expressed support for the announcement. New mining projects are expected to at least double electricity demand in northwestern Ontario by 2050, according to the Independent Electricity System Operator. To prepare for that, the IESO is launching public consultations to start developing a new regional electricity plan. Justin Hardy reports.
The forecast shows rising demand all over the region, driven largely by massive projects and industry, as well as the community expansion that follows, according to the IESO Director of Transmission Integration, Beverly Nollert.
What we're seeing is a significant increase in industrial demand growth. So specifically from mining and mineral extraction, that is contributing significantly to our demand forecasts in the region. We're also seeing that communities are growing because as mines locate in communities, there's a lot of secondary growth that goes along with the mine for new housing, for workers who support the mine.
The plan will consider both traditional solutions like new transmission lines, as well as non-wire solutions such as battery storage, renewable energy, and demand management programs. The process begins with demand forecasting and an assessment of whether the existing grid can handle future needs. If not, the IESO will explore new options to strengthen the system.
This is a great opportunity for community members, municipalities, sector participants, industry to have their say and provide input into our plan that is going to be developed for the Northwest to make sure that we're reflecting the local characteristics, local preferences, and ensure that we have a robust plan to meet the needs in the Northwest over the long term.
Consultations with industry, consumers, municipalities, and Indigenous communities are expected to begin by December. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
The top brass with the Ontario Road Builders Association were in Thunder Bay this week, lobbying for upgrades to the Trans-Canada Highway in this region. The ORBA President's Tour brought industry leaders together to highlight community priorities and projects. The gathering was held to raise awareness about the importance of investment in highway infrastructure in Northern Ontario. ORBA officials emphasized how crucial it is to put more money towards twinning area highways, particularly at a time when they're looking to break down provincial trade barriers. The group's CEO says even a 2+1 highway upgrade will improve the overall safety for all drivers. He was also asked about Thunder Bay's new designated truck route.
I can try to understand why decision makers opted to implement this bylaw, but in this instance, we are potentially putting the cart before the horse. If we want to really elevate health and safety, we need to look at ensuring that we have a 4-lane highway in the region and beyond. The Government of Ontario announced a 2+1 pilot, which I understand will still be moving along with. The idea is that we're elevating health and safety on highways to reduce collisions and fatalities.
ORBA is the leading voice for the province's transportation infrastructure sector, representing companies who build the province's roads, bridges, and highways. Tuesday was the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We will take a look at some of the events commemorating that day after the break. Welcome back. On Tuesday, hundreds of people from around Nan Territory gathered at Thunder Bay City Hall to walk in solidarity with residential school survivors. The emotion at the event was a mix of remembrance, grief, learning, and healing. Reagan Johnson was there.
The sea of orange grew as the morning went on. Orange Every Child Matters t-shirts were handed out as the crowd gathered, listening to First Nation chiefs and public officials, all sharing the importance of reconciliation.
It's a pain that would always be there. And so we are here to acknowledge that, to acknowledge the depth of that harm, to be grateful for the people who have survived and are here to share their stories, to make sure that we know.
A prayer was offered by a local pastor to welcome the spirit of the Creator. The program ended with the beating of a drum to lead the walk to Vickers Park, where people continued to gather in remembrance and recognize the impact of residential schools on the Indigenous people of Canada.
National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, it was Orange Shirt Day. And that movement was inspired by a survivor of a residential school from BC, Phyllis Webstad-Jock, and for many years before this became a holiday. So we wear these shirts to honor Phyllis and honor all those that went to residential schools, those that are still with us today and those that have gone before us.
What today means to me is where we can get the recognition and representation that we need as Indigenous people and a community as well. My grandpa was a residential school survivor, and with days like these, he can have the representation he needs because he also needs some light shined onto him, because I feel like he's important as well. Every Indigenous person is important. And I'm just happy that we can have this day every year, just to have the reconciliation and the prayers we can give to the kids and children who never came home.
Reagan Johnson, TBT News.
On Monday evening, all those who survived residential schools and those who did not were honored and represented at Hillcrest Park in Thunder Bay. Around 100 people gathered to raise an orange flag. What was once Orange Shirt Day is now the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a movement inspired by a 6-year-old girl whose orange shirt, a gift from her grandmother, was taken away from her upon arriving at a residential school. Orange now paints the country on September 30th. An orange flag was set at half-mast, mourning the loss of Indigenous freedom through residential schools. The event was attended by Michelle Solomon, the chief of Fort William First Nation.
Children didn't make it home to their families. That, to me, I can't even imagine what it is like to send my child to school and have them not come home. There's no room for racism and systemic discrimination, and that, horrible things did happen in this country and in this world, but we are all committed to making it better.
Reconciliation is very important because so much harm has been done to the Indigenous people throughout the years. Since Europeans have come over, they've been abused, and really it's been a big wrong that we need to right.
The Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce is taking steps to promote a more inclusive shopping experience with a new campaign called Status Cards Welcome. Local businesses are encouraged to display these decals created by Engaged Creative Productions, showing they welcome Indigenous status cards and honor tax exemptions under the Ontario First Nations HST rebate program. Packages have been sent to Chamber members, which includes 2 decals and an information sheet outlining what retailers need to know. Chamber Board First Vice Chair Ed Collins emphasizes the importance of this campaign, noting that status cards can sometimes cause confusion.
There's been for many years, when presenting my status card, there's a lack of education for what it is and why we do use it. So yeah, I think there's a very strong need for some education on the status card.
We really enjoyed working on this campaign. It's always wonderful to work with all of the artists, especially to do things like this where we are working with a lot of pieces. It's going to be great to see it out in the wild, and we're very happy that the Chamber approached us. It was a great project.
Decals and details are also available through the Chamber's website. Residents near the Kaministiquia River may have noticed a yellow tint to the water recently. It comes after Fisheries and Oceans Canada has begun treating waterways all along Lake Superior to reduce the sea lamprey population. Justin Hardy has more.
As seen here at Kekabeka Falls, the water passing through the Cam River will have a more saturated yellow tint. This is caused by the chemicals TFM and bailicide, chemical poisons for sea lampreys. Marine biologist Christine Boston explains that these chemicals are relatively safe for other species in the water.
Sea lamprey themselves, they're very primitive fish and they can't metabolize this chemical. Other fish are better at doing that. Having said that, we do have some species of fish that are also sensitive to TFM, so we are very careful about when and where we apply to minimize any risk to other species like juvenile lake sturgeon, for example, are sensitive to TFM, and this is why we actually are treating the system later, because we know now that they're large enough that and out of the system.
Sea lampreys are very prevalent in the western portion of Lake Superior, and like most other fish, travel upriver to spawn and then die. They lay their eggs in areas with a lot of debris, and once those eggs hatch, the bottom-feeding larvae drift downstream to soft riverbed, where they will remain for up to 15 years or more, depending on temperatures. There, they become parasitic juveniles and migrate out into the lake, where they each feed on up to 40 pounds of fish. Each female can lay up to 100,000 eggs, according to Boston. She says it's important to work to keep their numbers low.
Sea lamprey were one of the significant factors that led to the collapse of the Great Lakes fishery in the mid-20th century. And so they prey on native fish species and trout, salmon, whitefish in particular, because they're cold water species, so they share the same habitat, but they also will prey on other species of fish as well.
Other rivers leading into Lake Superior on both sides of the border will also be treated. Swimming, fishing, and boating remain safe, and fish caught during this time are safe to eat, according to Fisheries and Oceans Canada. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Tempers flared at a public meeting in Shunya last week regarding a proposed battery energy storage system. Officials with Powerbank are planning a 400-megawatt facility on Mount Baldy Road. Nearby residents are concerned about major fires at the station and say most of them weren't even notified about the meeting. Jonathan Wilson reports.
So what we are proposing is a battery energy storage system, which is essentially intended to enhance the local grid reliability. And what it does is it charges electricity overnight when there's a low demand, and it discharges during the day during the peak demand times.
Despite the touted benefits for the region, residents at this open house contend the battery energy storage system proposed by Powerbank is unsafe, will create hardly any jobs after it's constructed, and will drive down property values on Mount Baldy Road and the surrounding area. Several attendees pointed out that a quick Google search revealed 15 fires at similar facilities in the past year.
Mainly our concerns are environmental. These things appear to be wildly unsafe. There's a lot of incidents with them. And essentially there's no benefit to anybody locally, any of the local residents.
One of our other major concerns is the fact that these things are notorious for catching fire and exploding. And for a residential street that has one way in, one way out, how do you expect to evacuate all those people, especially on a busy ski day when the ski hill potentially has hundreds of people there? It's an extremely unsafe location for something that is, prone to exploding and catching fire.
I mean, I wouldn't say that these sites are notorious for fires. As I mentioned, the safety standards over the past number of years have really advanced. Safety is something that's really paramount to Powerbank, so we are going to take all the safety concerns into consideration and work with fire services, authorities having jurisdiction, to make sure that all the community's concerns are addressed to the best of our ability.
Most of the attendees live on Mount Baldy Road, where this project is proposed for, and many of them say they never received the letters the company says it mailed out to all nearby residents regarding this open house.
Judging by the comments here, almost nobody was notified of this. It seems like the process was purposely rushed. I don't think they wanted much of a turnout here. And they basically haven't notified anyone. They're trying to rush this through without any scrutiny.
We understand that there is some, this is maybe new information that's being shared with them, so we are happy to answer their questions and alleviate their concerns to the best we can.
If Shunya Council endorses the $300 million project and the independent electricity system operator selects Powerbank's proposal for an energy contract next year, the project could be built and up and running by 2029. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
OPP have provided details about an unplanned roadside barbecue on September 21st after a tractor trailer caught fire on Highway 11 near Rocky Bay First Nation. The blaze broke out at around 3 o'clock that Sunday morning. OPP confirmed the driver and a passenger in the vehicle escaped unharmed, but the tractor trailer was completely destroyed. The truck was filled with packaged meat, and there were no hazardous goods on board. Passers-by say the smell of cooked meat was very noticeable. The cause of the fire is still unknown. Well, another regional winner is named in the Dryden 50-50. We will have that story and more after the break.
$92,880.
Welcome back. A woman from Eagle Lake is the winner of the Dryden 50-50 draw for September. Organizers of the monthly fundraiser for the Dryden Regional Health Services Foundation drew the grand prize ticket last Friday. Tina Gardner got the exciting phone call from Foundation co-chair Brad Coles.
You're kidding. The money?
We just did our grand prize draw for September.
You're kidding.
And we...
Oh my gosh. Wow. So I won.
Yes, $92,880.
How much?
$92,880.
Oh my God, what a great morning. This is amazing. What a wonderful start to my weekend.
Tina Gardner has won $92,880. Congratulations.
Gardner says she's planning to use her winning to buy a newer car, pay some bills, and probably take a nice trip somewhere. The Franco-Ontarian flag turns 50 this year. Flag-raising ceremonies were held across the region on September 25th, including at Thunder Bay City Hall. Officials from the Northwestern Ontario Francophone Association were joined by students from several local schools as the day was celebrated with speeches and music. Association President Claudette Gleason says nurturing Francophone culture is important, and she's happy to see the number of people that came out for the ceremony.
I think that for me, a language is a door to a culture. I believe you should, as much as possible, nurture your culture, because that's who you are. It's an identity. If you look at yourself and understand who you are, it makes such a difference, and language is part of it. So We feel that for the existence of our society, it is a bonus to keep our language.
It's really important to me because it really showcases how our community can come together. I mean, there were so many students here who proudly represented our community with their signs and their enthusiasm. It was wonderful seeing the inclusivity and the diversity that stemmed from today.
The green and white flag continue to serve as a symbol of unity and recognition for Francophones across the province. Well, that's all the time we have for now. I'm Ryan Graham. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.